Bringing you an update about Cleo Smith, the little 4-year-old who was abducted from the Quabba Blowholes campsite in WA and found 17 days later 1 kilometre from the local cop shop in her hometown of Carnarvon. Terence Kelly is charged with her abduction, among other criminal charges. He's pleaded guilty to the abduction charges. I think the other things are on hold. His court case is coming up on March 20. On the 18th day, Max Markson, our Australian king of publicism, promoter extraordinaire, so Max Markson of Marks and Sparks, he was already in with the family and talking about movies and how there would be specials, like on the anniversary of the day, police knocked on the door in the state housing community suburb where Cleo was discovered. The outcome is that he signed for Ellie Smith and Jake Glidden, the stepfather and mother of Cleo, a nearly $2 million publicity deal. This is for an interview with 9 Network here in Australia. There was a bidding war between Channel 7 and Channel 9. And of course, when you've got these warring factions, you know the price can go up. Markson had actually been the person to get the previous highest amount paid for an interview of $1 million. This was to Brant Webb and Todd Russell, 2 men who survived a mine shaft collapse. Before that, it was probably Lindy Chamberlain, and it would have been Markson again, and I think she got around $250,000. I'm not sure. He's been in operation a long time. He's part of the, I would say furniture here, but it's more like, he's seated on his throne, isn't he? And this has disturbed some people. I can see that, family needs to move on. Cleo needs support, healing, etc. At the same time, the world is curious, and the money, minus Markson's $400,000 cut, so it's rumoured, the money would go a long way towards all the support that Cleo needs to move through life. For all the counselling and therapy she's going to need, all the tools she's going to need, for schooling, for whatever she thinks will help her over the course of the next 14 years and then beyond. $1.6 million is going to go a long way. But many people are very concerned for Cleo because, it said she is going to be, this isn't just an interview with Ellie and Jake. This is an interview with little Cleo, and she'll be on camera. She'll be not just shown, but she's actually going to be spoken with, and she's going to be questioned about her ordeal. Not sure how you guys feel about that. This is how the things go, I guess. It all played out on the world stage, and as well as just the enormous effort by law enforcement and the people of Carnarvon and all of the resources that were utilised in WA in the search for Cleo. including international tactical, operational support. I'm not quite sure. You know, beyond that, it's the world now where everyone is watching. So I guess everyone feels owed a little bit, not owed a little bit, but feels so invested that, yeah, there is a high value to getting this family in front of the camera, Cleo included. For those of you that aren't familiar with Cleo's terrible ordeal, she was being held in the home of a man with an obsession with Bratz dolls, one of which is called Cleo, and the suspicion is that the woman that would come in and care for Cleo, feed her, clean her, was likely her abductor, dressed in the clothing of the woman who raised him, who had recently died. He was known to frequent the Quabba blowholes, but never to stay there at night. He always returned back to Carnarvon, or so the caretaker up there observed, and Cleo was abducted, it's thought of, at about 1:30 in the morning or thereafter. Something disturbed her, probably him moving around outside, and in the morning she was gone, right? So a massive search ensues, with police flying in from around the state, drones being activated. The area out there is so vast and wild and crazy. She could have been in this wild waterway called the Blowholes and trapped in a crevice, or in the hundreds of miles of tracks that crisscross around in a very confusing manner, behind the campground, in between the town, and out toward all the mining communities in the area. But it was CCTV that helped out. There was a report of a car being heard at 3 a.m. And then half an hour away at 3:30 a.m. a report of a car turning out of the road from Quabba Blowholes campsite by two miners who were in a vehicle travelling north to go to their job site. And the car actually was caught on CCTV, a security unit on a home on the main road that it had turned onto. I'm not sure what the final tip-off was actually, but there was $1 million as a reward, and no one has been paid out. It's not true that during the time of the abduction, people saw and reported Terence buying nappies. They didn't report it, but they spoke about it afterwards. So no, those people aren't due the reward, but people in his neighbourhood recognised him at the shops and saw him buying nappies, which they did think was rather strange. Terence also was apparently going in during this time to one of his support centres. Terence is an Australian Aboriginal person who was going to a support centre and, a community centre, probably a not-for-profit government-funded organisation possibly, and he would go in there and want to talk about the case and see what the news was and ask people what they thought, etc. So I don't know if it's technology, phone pings, etc. The interesting thing is that there was one tower, there was a new cell tower, I think my phone battery's going to die, out near Quabba Blowholes, and I think Terence's phone was picked up, and maybe a data study eventually narrowed in on Terence. The thing is, Terence is a well-known person to police in the area. Anyway, they broke in to the home that he had shared with his guardian until she died, and little Cleo was in a room all alone, awake and playing with toys. I don't know if she was being held in the room that had all of his Bratz dolls, but it certainly is a very bizarre obsession. And from what I understand, he had Facebook, do you say accounts or whatever? Do you have a Facebook page? I can't remember the terminology, but he was following Cleo Smith on Facebook. Ellie and Jake have curiously, beautifully curated Facebook pages. It's just like here's one I prepared earlier, just in case my daughter goes missing. I know, here we go again. This is another awful thing that Humanimals says. But people in true crime that follow true crime, we know that what are people going to do? The first thing they're going to do is go and look at people's Facebook pages, look at their social media. You've never seen such a curated page as Ellie's and Jake's. I mean, is this just what some 30-year-old people are like these days? Very particular, very self-controlled and very stylized. It always sat strangely with me. And now you've got the $2 million deal. That's all. Just an update with what's happening. So when March 20 comes around, perhaps from that date forward we will learn more information. It's not like in America. We don't have the looseness with information and things that you do there. People often say, why do you follow so many American cases? Well, there's a reason for that. Not only do they strike you, you connect in some way, but there's a lot of information, and it does really draw you in a very in a particular way, doesn't it? So I will speak to you later. Thanks for listening. Bye.